I'll kind of, in fact, golden words will get repeated. So, guys, a big welcome on what is a very, very warm Saturday afternoon here in Mumbai. I promise you that the next 45 minutes to an hour will be an extremely engaging session where we will talk about rural finance, digital aspects of it, lending, insurance, payments, just about everything. So, entire BFSI world really around rural markets. My name is Anand Bhatia. I'm the CMO at Fino Payments Bank. And I have with me a very, very interesting panel with me, uh, experts in their field. And we are all here today. We'll discuss a bunch of questions, but very importantly, this is your session. This is a session where we would love to hear a lot of your questions and your thoughts. So I guess everybody has a little window where which you can keep on writing in, and we'll incorporate the questions as we go along. I promise you, never a dull moment. What I would want in return is a lot of questions, a lot of engagements during the course of the sessions, and we're even available outside of the session for a constant interaction. So, now with this, allow me to welcome our three very, very good panelists. I guess they'll just come on board and in no particular order. You guys just go ahead with the introductions and let's get the show on the road.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Anand, I guess I'll go first.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. My name is Reema Mukherjee. I head strategic initiatives and corporate communications at Arohan, which is a microfinance organization. We provide sustainable credit to microfinance in the form of microfinance to rural customers mostly. And of course, 97% of our customers are women. So very interesting to see how our client base has transformed over the years and how we can serve them better. Happy to be part of this discussion, Anand, and look forward to a good and intriguing questions from our audience as well.
Absolutely. Kuldeep.
Am I audible?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you are.
You are.
Hi, I'm Kuldeep here, representing Spice Money. I head marketing for Spice Money. We are a rural fintech and very happy to be part of this forum today. Very interesting panel and look forward for questions coming in from the rural forum. More than happy in terms of addressing, as Anand said, during this session and offline as well. Very keen on connecting on people who are interested in rural, especially. Look forward for an interesting session with the panel and with the audience today. Thank you so much.
Okay, so very good evening, everyone, and thank you, Anand, for this platform, as well as thank you, Rural Marketing Initiative. So I'm Balachandran MK. I'm representing the SBI General Insurance Company, and I'm heading the rural and micro insurance vertical there. Being in this rural and micro insurance and agricultural insurance space for last 14 years, so I would like to share a few of my experiences as well as certain things as a company that we have done in the last 2 years which could help others as well, because I believe these are all knowledge sharing platforms where we could learn from each other and address whatever we call it as the challenges of rural market. So if we are able to crack it, I would say yes, we all together can do wonderful things going forward. So look forward for a very meaningful discussion and would be happy to be a part of this, contributing the way what I could do with my experience. Thank you, and over to you, Anand.
Cool. Thank you so much. So, guys, to really get this show on the road, I have a very fundamental question for all three of you, and the question goes as follows: at a very, very fundamental level, is this rural consumer very different from the urban consumer? And remove any differences due to language, expression, food habits. So take that out of the equation. But is there a fundamental difference between what we call a rural consumer and what's an urban consumer? Reema, you could go first.
Thank you, Anand. And indeed, it is such a fundamental question, but at the same time, so crucial for all of us to understand. Is a rural customer really different from an urban customer, right? Leaving aside, things like language and other concerns that usually come up from place to place geographically, right? I would say fundamentally, in terms of needs, right? It's fine. right? There is no difference. Like you mentioned, Dhoni in the Northeast, right? It roti kapda makan, that stays the same. But where the difference does come in my opinion, is and in my experience, is that between urban and rural customers, the avenue or the access to what to spend on, what are the things that I want to spend on, that differs greatly, right? So in a rural setup, I might not be able to, just Swiggy in some specific kind of food that I want. I'm talking about a simple service that I think many of us in urban areas and metropolitans take for granted nowadays, or just order a cab on Uber to go from point A to point B. But the access to the avenues to spend, I would say, the access of services and products to spend on is much more limited in many parts of rural India, even we've of course made a lot of progress. I went to what I had in my mind as a village, which is about 7 hours drive from Jabalpur in Madhya Pradesh. This was about a few months ago, and I was surprised. Nowhere close to what I had imagined it in my head. So the access is improving. Definitely, it has improved a lot, but it's still, there's a significant gap, I would say, between what people can spend on and would like to spend on in rural India compared to urban India today. So I'll pause here. I have other thoughts as well, but maybe we'll move on to other
Yeah, we'll
panelists
keep
as
them
well.
coming. Mr. Balachandran, having spent a significant portion of your career, as you mentioned, handling rural markets, in your mind, fundamentally, is the consumer very different across markets? Is their buying behavior very different?
Yeah, Anand, so I would like to answer this question keeping the insurance sector, or maybe I would say, especially the insurance sector in mind, because that is one set of service, or it's a product which is intangible. So when I go to the market, I don't have anything in my hand like an FMCG customer or FMCG industry to show them, okay, you give me 5 rupees, I'm giving you this sachet, or I have this product. But insurance is an intangible product, and unfortunately, the benefit, or a person actually gets the benefit when something bad happens to him. So it's a very complex structure to actually make them understand, or make them, even when it comes to an urban customer also, when I pitch in a health insurance product or any other insurance product, the first thing that comes to our mind is that, okay, will I get hospitalized? I'm fully fit, I might not need this product. So that hedging of that risk, unlike other markets, or maybe or that thought process to spend for insurance for actually getting our risk covered, is still not there in the Indian context. And when it comes to especially the rural customers, the awareness levels, the accessibility, all those things are still a challenge, and we all are working together with the digital enhancements and the use of technology to address all these things. But I still believe the basic understanding, or the basic I would say behavior of that customer is still a bit different. I just take my example. I stay in an apartment in Mumbai, and I still don't know. Maybe I'm staying there for 7 months now. I just know the two neighbors who are just in next to my door. I don't know anybody who is staying in the second floor or the third floor, which is above me. Unlike in a village, when I am go to my village, still, even though I'm not there for the last 20 years, people recognize me, and there is a connect that is there, that they are still connected. So that connect plus the loyalty factor, I would say, the urban customer switches one product to another, we experiment a lot. But I still believe rural customers experiment, or they intend to change if we do something wrong, and if they are they feel like, okay, I'm cheated, or if there is something good happens, otherwise something bad happens, otherwise they will stick to that particular line of business, or they will stick to that particular product. So there are few more attributes, but I would like to share these initial thoughts here. And I still believe that there is a behavioral difference still there, which will definitely help us to pace our marketing campaigns or our product features accordingly. But insurance is an entirely different game when it comes to the product, which, because it is an intangible product, and we face a lot of challenges with that.
Right. You touched upon something which is very, very interesting, that the behavior is different. And, my question to Kuldeep is a follow up on that, you know, behaviorally, if there is a difference, one, whether, you agree or disagree. Secondly, how is a brand like Spice really, or how have you as a professional really, worked with this particular challenge or opportunity of common behavior or different behavior depending on the way you see it.
Yeah. So Anand, while Reema had set the context in terms of this urban and rural divide is clearly an infrastructural divide, what we see, and that's why we actually have these two cohorts in India. One is urban, one is rural, right? Otherwise, every Indian pretty much aspires to think same, similar expressions. We are also multilingual. We also
True.
have our own languages, right? We also have our own cultural sort of approach when it comes to sentiments, when it comes to behavior. So nothing changes while we've migrated from villages to be in an urban environment. I think the brains, the sentiment, everything remains the same in rural India. It's just the infrastructural divide that their exposure is not there.
Right.
Otherwise, if exposed to a Swiggy, which Rima gave an example, people would want to opt for a Swiggy, right? I've seen people changing their behaviors in terms of if there is a pizza outlet available, people will order from a Pizza Hut, right? It's about infrastructural divide which is there. Otherwise, I think India fortunately has been thinking the same, and this new digital connect, thanks to geofication. I've been part of the telecom for last 15 years of my career. I've seen the change what has happened to India today. Raju Chacha 20 years back is not Raju Chacha today. The villager has evolved. They may not follow the brands what we wear, but they look pretty similar to what a urban citizen looks like today. So the aspirations are pretty same. They're
Mhm.
connected to the Dhonis of the world. They're connected to the Sonu Soods of the world. They relate to Pankaj Tripatis of the world, right? So the content what they're consuming is pretty same. Psychological intent is pretty much the same. My belief is it's just an infrastructural miss for rural India, unfortunately, that they're not enjoying the facilities what we enjoy.
Right.
I agree to what Bala said in terms of connect. They're more connected. They're more emotionally connected in terms of being a small community. So they stand for each other. While in the urban environment, I think we are so involved in a chaotic lifestyle, we're lost. A lot of brands are talking to us. A lot of people are any which ways talking to us. We have a very chaotic lifestyle. In rural India, they're a little more sorted in terms of what they want. So their choices are very referral mode. Their choices are very word of mouth. They rely on a lot of trust factor, which is very critical in rural because of the exposure.
True.
So that's my stance in terms of Anand. The concluding the question, I don't think so. The Bharat customer is different now, and the Bharat customer should get the right in terms of infrastructure. May it start with digital first, and over a period of time, I think the infrastructure is evolving the way we see today.
I think, and that was a
I
nice opener. Yeah.
No, sorry, Anand. Just to continue on Bala and Kuldeep's point, right? When you're talking about
Mhm.
connect and how that differs between people in the same community in rural as compared to urban India, right? So when we provide loans to microfinance customers, right, in terms of
Mhm.
behavior in of our customers in rural as compared to urban customers. So the model of microfinance is that we lend to a group of women, right? We call it a
Right.
JLG, a joint liability group, or an SHG, a self-help group, right? And the model initially, when it started, according to the Grameen methodology, is that the women in that group, the JLG or the SSG, they stand for each other. So that trust is there, that accountability is there, right? And of course, now post COVID, there's been a, overall the lending industry has gone through a tough time. Indeed, all industries have. But traditionally, we've seen the connect is much higher in rural India, right? Like Kuldeep and Balaji said, that over there, it's like if I'm not being, then I know that my neighbor is today not well, or he or she is in the field, or something has happened. But I won't know what my neighbor is doing if I'm in Bombay or Calcutta, and that's true for our customers as well. So that's behavioral divide, that connect divide is very evident across locations and geographies.
I think that's so true, and I think this will be music to the ears of many a marketer to really probably ratify their hunch that the consumer is fundamentally similar. There are infrastructure issues, there are exposure issues, and
Right.
geofication is a word that you said that that's really bringing markets closer. And somewhere we all touched upon how digital payments etc. are also now kind of making everything far more democratic. So my question to Reema, really, and everyone else, do pitch in, is that is there an visible impact now of government schemes or probably even coercion on the side of regulators to drive this rural consumer who was hampered with infrastructure more than anything else to start adopting digital payments and getting more and more cash free in that sense.
So, to answer your question, firstly, I don't think there's coercion from anybody, to be honest, right? It's just how the wind blows and which way the tide is turning, right? So, we did a survey amongst our customers where we saw that, and 97% of our customers are women, almost 60 to 70% from rural India, right? And we saw that 70% of our customers have access to a smartphone, right? And we were very surprised to see that initially when we got the data. But what does that go to show? She might not own it, but somebody in her family might have it and will have it, right? Maybe her daughter, her son going to school or college, even her husband who might be in a separate, traveling back and forth, or even a daily laborer, whatever their profession might be, right? Or circumstances might be. What does that go show us? That slowly and evidently people are getting used to tech, right? Even now, like I'm based out of Calcutta, right? We're headquartered over here. But if we step maybe 2 to 3 hours away from Calcutta into rural parts of West Bengal, you'll see people, even small children, watching YouTube and Facebook and indeed earlier when TikTok was there, they do that. It's just a part of their lives nowadays, right? So it's overall, things have moved towards digital being very much a part of their lives, especially amongst the younger generation, even today. Now, coming to the finance part of it, right? Of course, the RBI, the government, indeed, they are focusing on financial inclusion, they're focusing on digitalization, right? And that helps in many, many different ways. One, of course, as Kuldeep mentioned, there is an infrastructure gap even today. Like we talk about 5G in the metro cities, but there are many parts of, even with geofication, there are many parts of India where even 3G or 2G is, not available. So that divide, but it is getting breached, right? In terms of the regulatory environment, in terms of the government or other incentives, yes, there is a push, right, towards digitalization, which is why things are so easy nowadays, right? You want to make a payment, even today, even our rural customers are making digital payments. There is sufficient space either digitally or through cash drop point or customer service points where they can just go and make a either digital payment themselves or ask the local bhaiya or chacha ji ki us dukaan ka kirane shop ka that aap mere liye ye payment kar dijiye, right? So it's there. Definitely the trend is in that direction, is what we are seeing on the ground.
Fabulous. So, Kuldeep, to build on this point, and since the business that
Right.
you're in is a lot about payments in rural markets, what have you seen in terms of what's driving this change or adoption? Again, is it regulatory, or as Reema also said that there's really no coercion, but it's a gradual journey now. So, is it regulatory? Is it really coming in from the within, or what are the factors that seem to be driving adoption?
So Anand, the year I would say, while I've been part of the telecom industry as well, and I've been in the payment side now, the government definitely has played a role in terms of building this entire infrastructure, in terms of connectivity to rural India. uh, in Geo, where data was democratized, right? Today, consumption of 4G data, where the Indian average has gone to anywhere close to 11 GB, 10 GB sort of consumption, where we were only consuming 3, 4 MBs, and that too in urban environment. I think government with these telecom players have made a role in terms of penetrating that 4G services across the country today, and making it available at an affordable price, right? Data is not luxury anymore. Data is more like your makan, kapda, and data and phone, right?
Yeah.
It's got to that sort of essentials now. And in pandemic, what we saw, Anand, like demonetization, which forced people to get into a digital environment, and largely I think the urban did manage to sort their lives during demonetization, but rural definitely struggled during demonetization because lack of banking branches, ATMs, and no access to cash, right? No access to banking at all. And digital at that point in time, there is still digital skepticism when it comes to financing or payments, for that matter. If you look at UPI today, which is zero to merchant, zero to a consumer, it is definitely a government move which is moving digital payments in the rural environment. What I observe you've started seeing QR codes in rural India, in the remotest locations of rural India as well. So I think by far globally, no country has evolved so fast on digital the way we are. UPI is our creation as a country. I think the data as well. I think we're cheapest in globally in terms of our data consumption as well. So these are levers which are working in our favor in terms of democratizing and bridging the gap between rural and urban. When it comes to spice money, what we've observed again, offering an essential sort of license to a player, we are a banking corresponding player where we got an essential license. It was primarily to get adoption in rural India. If you look at Niti Aayog or RBI opening up digital banks now, I think the government sentiment is in terms of evolving the digital payment ecosystem in rural India. And while banking correspondent was nothing new, it's been activated since 1990. But if you look at the adoption, what PSU banks did to what now private players and digital payment stacks are doing is way different. So the belief in terms of doing that, I think government, RBI, all of them are involved in terms of driving this financial inclusion, and this will definitely reduce the entire gap in terms of payment as such.
Fantastic. I guess I hope that everyone who's tuned in is taking one big takeaway that the financial services world is really really busy, oiling the rails so that at least money movement is easy, and if there
Right.
is movement of money and financial services easy, a lot of other businesses kind of catch up. Mr. Balachandran, on the insurance side, how have you seen digital really take over in terms of buying of insurance and obviously even renewals in what are typically considered as rural markets and probably hence considered digitally dark by a lot of people. So adoption of insurance, buying insurance online, renewing insurance online, what's been the experience and what has made it faster and better in the last some years?
Yeah, sure. So I would like to answer this question keeping in two insurance sectors in mind: the life insurance and the general insurance. So I have been working in the general insurance segment, so I would like to answer the concept of insurance evolution in the digitization space, especially keeping the general insurance industry or the sector in mind. And here, the digitization, I would start with the payments discussion what we were having earlier, and then I will come to the buying journey. So when it comes to the payment, here what happens in insurance is that it is still an assisted model. So when we talk about the rural India, it is 99%. It is still an assisted model because unlike the urban space where we use a lot of web-based app or maybe we directly log into an insurance company and issue a policy, it's not happening that way in the rural space. So still they depend upon the channel partner. It could be anybody who is working in their vicinity to actually get into an insurance policy buying process. But the payment aspect there, I would say from the entity side, it is 100% digitized now. So any channel partner who is working with us or in fact with working with anybody else is doing using that digital payment mechanism to actually pay for their insurance premiums. And in SBA especially, this particular rural and micro insurance sector was actually created, the vertical was actually created to cater to this specific segment of people. And in the last 2 years we have actually done only digital transaction. And in this year when I talk about the insurance payments or the premiums whatever we have received for this particular vertical, as such we have issued more than 2 lakh policies, but zero check or zero cash collection. So that is how the payment happens digitally. So since it's an assisted model, it's easy for the channel partner to actually do that payment on behalf of the customer. They collect the cash. So that kind of digitization from the direct customer perspective is yet to evolve when it comes to insurance. And coming to the insurance buying journey, that is something that has taken a lot of change in the last 3 4 years. And especially the pandemic situation, I guess that has helped both life as well as general to revamp their processes. And everything happens, I would say, more or less 100% digitally for almost all partners. And when I talk about SBA General, as I said earlier, we are already a 100% digital end-to-end transaction. And when I talk about these transactions, I'm talking about large volumes. It's not just few policies or few thousands policies, because the network is so huge, because we do a lot of business with CSC as well as BC partners who are present in nook and corner of the country. I guess Kuldeep will be able to watched that because BCs are present in only those locations where the banking network is not there. So they are in those areas where they cater to a village. So the kind of reach that has been done is precisely because of these intermediaries. And these intermediaries are capable to do digital transactions because they already are doing banking transaction digitally. So for them to adapt to insurance is at another service that they are adding to their network. So
Right.
that adoption is, I would say, has happened really well in the last 3 4 years, and almost everybody has moved into that journey wherein it helps us in reducing the cost as well as it helps us in bringing in a sustainable, scalable model. Because in rural, when I talk about I need to have simple, low ticket size products, and then only it will mean value to them. I don't have to sell a 50 lakh sum insured worth health insurance policy to a rural customer.
Right.
So we'll have to have such products, plus we'll have to have the accessibility to buy insurance. That was something which was lacking before, but with the
Right.
help of digital partners and digital intermediaries, that is something that we are able to plug. And I guess the future is bright because we have started using WhatsApp chat to issue policies. So as a customer, you can just issue a policy while chatting in your regional language. So that is one unique experiment that SBIG initiated, and I guess through when WhatsApp payments comes as a common platform for payment solutions, I guess that will actually bring in that association or cohesion when people can actually get into their normal routine of chatting and buying a policy. So these are all future aspects, but I guess it's the journey has started really well, and I hope things will actually uh, come
No,
out
And a
much
point,
absolutely
in the next.
fascinating.
a point I want to
Yes,
add
good.
here, what Bala
Yeah.
mentioned, and this is also to be blamed to a lot of brand players, brand custodians like us. That typically when we do a media plan, we've been ignoring a lot of deeper pockets in terms of education. If you look at Pehle Insurance as a campaign, which is a government initiative, right? Largely, you will see all these hoardings in most of the urban environments. We are exposed to LICs of the world, to SBIs of the world, to all brands who are talking to us, right, in terms of insurance. And it's been over 2 decades. We've seen those ads, we've seen those campaigns, and that's the belief what we have, which is like post graduation के बाद MBA करना जरूरी है, नौकरी करने के बाद insurance लेना जरूरी है. This has become like a habit for us. While in rural India, the education has, in terms of media consumption, has been also an infrastructure issue. We've not managed to go deeper in terms of pushing our products in rural India. We typically look at metros, top 60 cities, 65 cities, campaign ends there, right? We're not going deeper in terms of connecting them. That's where I fear. I used to find that Doordarshan was one particular channel. If you would have stuck to one channel, I think the entire India would have got educated in terms of insurance or products. We evolved to having two kids from multiple sort of the population arrest, or Swachh Bharat became a campaign for the country today. Everybody thinks Swachh Bharat, right? While you're throwing a tissue out of your car, also you'll think twice before doing that. So that sort of education, I think, is also required. While channels, Bala mentioned that channels have opened up, a lot of digital players are taking these products there, but whether the adoption is moving at that pace is going to be a question. And how do we move
Right.
that fast, and how do we ensure that brands continue to invest and continue to have that interest in being in rural India?
Right. So you see,
I just
media.
like to add. Sorry, Kuldeep.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Anand.
No,
Please go
Rima,
on.
in fact, I was coming to you only, so I guess very naturally you've come in. So super.
Okay, great. Thank you. I wanted to add to what Bala and Kuldeep said. Like Kuldeep spoke about customer education, right? So I'll give you an example. There was this scheme launched by the central government called PM Swanidhi, which was for small vendors. We are in the lending industry, so that involved giving small street vendors who are based out of marketplaces small tenure loans of say 10,000, and if they were to make digital repayments, then the interest rate would be subsidized. And that was the agreement in an effort, to your point, Anand, earlier about how subsidies and other things work, right? But and this was our experience, is that that turned out to be more of a deterrent for the rural customer, possibly, and also maybe could have been because of the timing, because this was just when COVID was, wave one was getting over, and then we know wave two and wave three struck after that. It could have been because of the timing, but also we saw that take up, it's a good product, right, in terms of something which a street vendor might need on a day-to-day basis. It helps his or her cash flow, his or her working capital. It's a good product to have, and it's subsidized further if you are making digital repayments. But there was some, instead of acting as an incentive, unfortunately, our experience was within our customer base that it didn't really turn out that way. But having said that, we did see that because we were working with the government and then other institutions who were also providing similar, the same product to their customers, we saw that some of the bigger banks had much better luck than we had, right? So they were able to convert a lot more customers. I'm not sure what the urban rural divide of those customers was, but possibly because of customer education. You have to educate the customer that how to do it. This is what it means. It's not a risk. I think the most thing is we spoke about tangibles and intangibles. Bala spoke about that, right? But if it's not something which you're actually counting in hand, right? वो हाथ में पैसे नहीं आ रहे, तो वो हाथ में पैसे मैं किसी को दे नहीं रही हूँ, right? So that divide, that's more of a mindset block, I would say, and hence education, the willingness becomes even more important in such cases.
So, my question, and I guess anyone can, take a go at it, is that then media, which is, largely we're talking about is more on the entertainment side, where, you go to the back and beyond and people are watching the latest Netflix movie or on YouTube, etc. So when media keeps talking about adopting digital payments or even financial services, today I think to become a cricketer, you need to have been a mutual fund agent, right? I mean, the amount of mutual fund that cricketers are selling nowadays is incredible, right? So given all this, what really works in terms of driving the education part? Because finance can be a tough category for consumers to get. So, in your experience, and to all three, what kind of media has worked very, very well in helping the consumer adopt to finance as a category, and within finance to start adopting to digital as a mode of buying or paying? Anyone could go first.
So, in terms of media specifically, what is required in terms of education? Clearly, one high level ATL broadcast is required from the government as well, in terms of uh, pushing the adoption. The reason, the way mutual fund has seen that traction in the urban environment, again coming back to the point which I mentioned, pehle insurance mutual fund sahi hai, and the kind of exposure what the urban India has, rural India definitely needs that sort of attention in terms of
But aren't
push
those
from a very.
corporate initiatives rather than government? Why the government? Why not corporate India? Aren't those corporate India initiatives
So
rather than government?
it, it,
AMFI is a
it, it
corporate
could
body.
be government and corporate put together. If you look at UPI, Bharat Pay was the first one to put the QR code across all the merchant outlets, or eventually then rest followed. Right? You see Phone Pay, Google Pay
True.
getting to the stickering sort of, which got us, all of us, that the UPI will work at a merchant level, which adopted merchant and the consumer both at same point in time. If you look at rural India again, did the UPI travel? Did the QR code travel to rural India? It didn't. Did the education travel to rural India? It didn't. Not that smartphone didn't exist there. Today with pandemic, every household has managed to get a smartphone because a kid was forced to study out of home. So you couldn't expect any better penetration in terms of smartphone today. But has the merchant evolved in rural India? Not really. Has the consumer evolved in rural India? Not really, because the skepticism in terms of consumption of products in rural India needs more assistance, which Bala also mentioned, right? There has to be a lot of narrative on the ground. There has to be a lot of narrative on the top as well, where the government is talking about it or corporate bodies are talking about it, which gives a lot of assurance कि ये चलता है, ये सही है. Otherwise,
Right.
rural India will always land up having all questions, and they'll continue to being in a skepticism mode. ये सवाल बंद करने हैं तो government has to act there, right? Swachh
Right.
Bharat became a conduct for the country, not for urban or rural. It became a conduct for the country. So that is how I
Right.
think education wise government has a role to play. A lot of bigger brands have a role to play as a category leader in terms of educating rural India as well, and
Right.
followed by assistance will continue, because the rural customer which is coming up now, who's in college, is evolved. The
Yes.
existing customer which is between 30 to aged at 55 still wants to do Aadhaar payment, but the customer which is sitting out of schools and college would want to do UPI tomorrow. So are there enough apps which are talking in rural India? They're not. Is there enough education which is happening in rural India? It's not. So that sort of education, that sort of media play, I think every category leader as a brand, government, and all regulatory bodies need to do that.
Fair. And that's a
Right.
very good point that you raised. Yeah, Reema.
Sorry, Anand, I keep interrupting you. Please carry on. I'll add on after you finish. Yeah.
So my
Okay. Okay.
question really was that like you mentioned about corporates and government bodies, right? So in short, lending probably does not have the same kind of structure around it, like let's say what Amphi has developed, or what even RBI says about certain watch out for certain stuff around lending. Then while lending is always a very basic need and probably doesn't need pushing to the same extent that buying insurance or investment needs, there again educating this consumer to start doing stuff digitally. Where do you think there is a role for the government, for a regulator, and for a corporate body?
Right. I'll just come in over here, Anand. And I think overall, like you mentioned, like in terms of lending itself, right, in the credit industry, I'll give you an example and then we move on to more specifics, right? So we launched an app for customers, right, knowing that 70% of our customers have access to smartphones, and we did a targeted campaign around customer education. But when I it in so many different states across India. And what we did, sorry, no, 1 second, did was we circulated video, tried to get customers to engage with us, even pamphlets and things like that. But what we saw that when we did more targeted campaigns where we actually had our staff go out and meet customers, right, and talk to them, ki Didi or Bhaiya, this is the app, this is how you download it, this is how you make a digital payment through the app, then the pickup was much higher, right? The acceptance, the usability, even digitally through the app itself, was way higher than saying sending out blanket communication that okay, this option is there available for you, right? So in terms of the responsibility, I think even corporates have as much of a responsibility as the government does, right? But having said that, to your second question, Anand, about the information part of it coming from government, right, or regulators for that matter, I think even I keep getting these messages that do not blanket, right, do not indulge in suspicious transactions, and I get messages coming up. The same message goes to the Didi also in rural India in her regional language as well, right? So that information is coming up, right? And by making UPI easier, by making digital transactions easier, the government is enabling the entire road to a digital India, right? Irrespective of whether it's rural or urban, right? So I think the necessary structures are in place. But of course, like we discussed earlier, there is still an infrastructure gap. But again, the wind is blowing in the right direction.
No, perfect. And this is very, very interesting, and I'm sure the audience is really hooked on to a lot of the key words that are being said, and what's being done in the space. Mr. Balachandran, I have a question for you, and it goes as follows. Insurance, when people buy, and especially when it is consumed digitally in an area which is conventionally been again digitally dark, what kind of social impact does it start having on the consumer's life? And how does it start transforming this consumer to consume better, and probably consume even across other categories? How does it really impact this person's life? How have you seen it impact people?
Got it. Sorry, I missed that conversation in between because I am in a rural area and my network got a bit affected a bit in between. So, Anand, I would like to answer this question based upon my understanding on how we have benefited people. And as I said earlier, insurance is a product which can be of use when there is a claim and when the person gets the benefit. So, the impact happens from there, and how fast we can get that benefit transferred is what all it matters. And as I said earlier, especially for the rural customers, loyalty and trust is a big factor. SBA as a brand, they might know, but they will only believe in the brand, they will only believe in the product when they get the benefit. And what I believe and what I have tried to experiment and bring in is benchmarking insurance claims to maybe a Swiggy service or maybe a refund of any online transaction. Because there is no pointing in benchmarking with the same industry. Yes, there is a benefit to that, but we benchmark with somebody else outside who is doing something good. Because when we apply for a refund for any of the transaction that we do, or when we I will share just a quick example. I used a Zoom car service, and since they were not able to provide that vehicle at my point, they asked me to take a cab to the nearest point and you will get refunded. So I went, I took that vehicle from that point, and when I submitted my bill of my Ola or Uber, they instantly transferred that money. So we were trying to bring in something that could be that instantaneous, and we were able to achieve in certain aspects. For example, in an MFI loan, I guess Reema will be able to understand this better. We give hospicash product and other related products to the customers. So the instant gratification that that lady gets. So there was an instant when the lady came to the branch, submitted the documents, and before she reached her home, the money was the claim was transferred to their account. So that is the kind of transformation and impact that I guess the industry should bring in, so that there could be more adaptability and they will feel the benefit. There is no pointing in giving that claim maybe after 6 months or after 1 month, because they would have actually got additional loan, or they would have collected money from some of their borrowers with higher interest rates. All those things happen. So we can bring in an impact when we can give instant solutions. Another example I would like to highlight is cattle and sheep and goat insurance. These are all typical products that we sell into the market. And unlike a normal car insurance where we have the registration number and all those things, for guys, for animals, we need to do the ear tagging and we need to actually take their information on a mobile app and all those stuff. So digitization has happened. Yet I'm coming to the point of the claim servicing. So the conventional cattle insurance claim settlement process normally takes bare minimum 15 days. I can vouch, anybody in the industry will agree to that. Okay, 15 days is the average time taken. And 15 itself is a very big achievement, I would say. So can we bring that to 2 days? Can we bring that to 1 day? That is something that will impact the society. And at least in SBI, we were able to do that. I hope others will also definitely will do that. I'm not saying it's not a big thing to be done, but that is where we could bring an impact from insurance, and that is where we could get in their loyalty as well as relativity that the rural market actually what they need. And as Kuldeep said earlier, their aspirations are same. Why can't they aspire for an immediate settlement when the urban customers are aspiring for that? We are used to that, so they also have that क्या बोलते हैं हक है पूछने का. So we should be actually there to service, support, and bring in that enabler wherein we can get that impact. So I believe that impact can be brought in when we service them in those aspects. Yes, policy sales or sourcing is much easier, but servicing is something that should be taken care of, and digitization can actually help us in bringing an impact there.
So
I think
Anand,
that
in
was
fact,
a fantastic example. Yeah.
Balas, sorry, Balas coined a new word, instantaneous, right? Uh, which is one of the biggest attribute for us to get to rural India, or in fact any consumer for that matter, right? The
Right.
consistency in terms of delivering that instantaneous, whether it'll be a claim or a payment or a loan for that matter, the belief in the
Right.
service will only come through instantaneous. The TAT has to be
Instantaneous.
equal. If I'm ordering from Amazon in sitting out of urban and sitting out of rural, the journey, the experience has to be same. Probably the number of days can increase, but the committed delivery there and the committed delivery to here has to be, the experience has to be same. Probably geographical
Right.
divide, add add to the tag, but the service experience has to continue to be the same. I think instantaneous is
Right.
something where all of us in our all our businesses need to work, right? In APS as well, Anand, which you're aware, अगर पैसा अटक
Right.
जाता है तो वो अटक जाता है, मतलब it is
Exactly.
stuck at the bank level. And
True.
the person who is sitting on the dukan, and imagine a customer who's withdrawing 5,000 rupees has a tight disposable income, and that money gets
True.
stuck for 20-30 days. How is that we are
True.
solving
True.
for that is very important. So
Right.
it's not just there are obviously the food chains are connected where payments come in. There are banks who need to work in terms of the timelines as well, technology as well. Players us like us need to work on instantaneous as well. Can we fund that money and probably recover that money from the bank so that the customer doesn't go through
Customer.
the pain points, right? When Bala spoke about insurance, 15 days for a cattle. is what a standard time is. I'm sure it must be going beyond that as well. Can we deliver that within say 5 days, 4 days, where the impact or the reason for what insurance has taken is addressed? Today, I
Is
think
addressed.
Amul has done a fantastic job in terms of dairy collection, the way they collect
True.
milk and the way the payments are done. So they've evolved to
True.
digital collection, to digital payouts as well, digital quality checks as well. And there is a lot of standardization which has happened in the cattle industry. So instantaneous, I think, is Anand, our takeaway in our forum today. Like we've parked a lot of words. I think this is one attribute
Yes.
all of us should pick up to go to rural India.
I think that is absolutely true. I think that's a very, very good word that Balachandran has really helped discover today evening. That this is a market where this is one attribute that's going to work really big. It's an extremely powerful weapon, and the standardization of service, makes it very, very important. Reema, my question to you is that you're making money available, and especially now increasingly everything in a very digital manner. How does it impact the life of your consumer out there? Is it something that helps transform their life and the way they go about every other task of their lives, or is it some one extremely small unimportant corner of their lives?
So that's actually a very interesting question, Anand, right? And we were discussing with the founder of our promoter group, Mr. Vineet Rai, yesterday, right? So when we provide custom money or funds to any customer, one of our customers, right? So one of three things can happen. Either her livelihood, livelihood, of course, increases, but either her living conditions increase, or they stay the same, or they, take a step back and it goes for whatever reason, right? Goes from some worse becomes worse, right? And what we'll see is that, especially in rural India, a lot of this is dependent on external factors. A natural catastrophe, for example, right? And they are so common, more common than we like to admit or even acknowledge nowadays because of climate change, right? A flood in Orissa or in Bihar, cyclones, other natural calamities, which affect rural customers way more than our customers in urban India, right? Uh, Her livelihood is going to get affected. Like Kuldeep mentioned, these are people who earn on a day-to-day basis, right? It's not like I have savings for 9 months saved up if I'm a rural consumer, right? Maybe, but more often not, right? So in that case, any external, maybe say, of course, COVID coming in, right? We've heard horror stories of how that affected not only urban but also rural India, where a lot of people had to go back, like the whole reverse migration that happened, right? So all of that, I would say, it does. Of course, when we are giving out credit to customers, whether urban or rural, it is from a social impact. It is to better her livelihood. It is to help her send her children to school and to make sure that she has adequate access to, basic medical facilities and basic health care, right? But very often than not, whether she's able to have access, whether that livelihood or the earning capability increases or not, whether she is able to send her children to school or not, is dependent on so much more, especially in rural India, right? So, and we've seen that it's not all. We know that COVID has set us back by many years in terms of poverty alone, across the world, not just in India, right? But it's not just COVID. COVID was, of course, a pandemic, right? But Koshi overflowing in Bihar, for example, right? Or some other Fani in Odisha, right? Cyclone Fani in Odisha. These are very localized events, but it disrupts um, the life of a rural consumer in much more catastrophically, I would say, than what somebody in an urban consumer would face. Right. So ultimately, it does affect people's, you know, lifestyle, if that's a word, applicable for most of our customers. But again, the aspiration behind providing credit, behind providing funds to our customers, irrespective of rural or urban, is to, of course, make sure that they have a better living style or system. You know what I mean, right?
Right. I think that was a good one. Very often when, especially the financial services world, talks about digital payments and using more and more of technology, there is a segment of the market that always says that, hey, listen, you are essentially making some of your services out of the reach of people who are struggling to use digital mode, either because of challenges with infrastructure that we spoke about earlier, or at times even articulation, education, confidence. So today, as in your respective businesses, how are you addressing this challenge? One, is it a challenge? Is digitization or more digital insurance, lending, money transfers, etc. Are they creating a dichotomy, or no? It's not. So, what are your views, and are there challenges, if any? Probably, Kuldeep, you could go first on this.
So, Anand, the education when it comes to financial businesses or financial product definitely is a challenge. While we are a merchant network, educating them from new products or pushing them to do new products is definitely a challenge for us. We are dealing with somebody who's digital literate, digital curious, right, and has not been exposed to your best of B schools or grad schools in past, right? So that's not the foundation. The consumption of education or consumption of content when it comes to product consumption, uh, they're not very keen on doing all this, right? How do you simplify this and educate them is very important. Plus, with the gratification, every time there has to be a gratification in terms of every step what you do. So in
And I
our
guess it has to be
scenario,
instant.
it has to be instant.
And the
Yeah, it
category
has
has
to
to be
be
instant.
anything what you do has to be instant. It can't be false promises. हम 5 साल बात करेंगे, 2 साल बाद होगा, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. And the audience today is very very sorted in terms of what they want, and you will see immediate drop offs as well if the product is not making sense according to them. But
True.
the challenge here is a lot of people are not aware what a product can do to them. For example, when we started selling Amazon on our platform, right? A lot of people are not aware how does it work, how does the assisted buying on e-commerce can happen, right? So education is very critical. We've started an academy at our end. So every product what we do, what we say is our merchant needs to do one product by himself first, or he or she has to get that product first. Basis that he or she will be able to sell in the market. If that merchant doesn't buy a uh, insurance like a hospi cash or a machar insurance, right, what we're trying to sell sachet products, if that merchant doesn't buy it, how will the merchant probably educate his community as well? So we ensure that the merchant takes the first plunge in terms of taking the product. Any feedbacks on the product are then addressed. Not that you always have a positive run to the product, right? There are whatever changes need to be done on the product, and it has to be incentivized. It has to be, so incentive is offering that product for the merchant, incentivizing for education, and then moving. So in my career, in my marketing, I've never had education as a channel, but here in Spice Money we have a Spice Money Academy, which plays a very important role in terms of handholding the merchants to do multiple products.
And that's a good one. Mr. Balachandran, especially with, as insurance gets more digital, do you really see a gap between those who can adapt and those who struggle? And, as a brand, how would you be addressing it?
So, as I said earlier, Anand, as of now in insurance, especially in the rural market, it is more of an assisted model. So, whichever channel partner, I would not go to the customer end as of now, because customers are not using it for their direct benefit. They actually use it through an intermediary. So here I would categorize those intermediaries who are digital savvy and who have that capability to use that digital technology as a tool. They have gained a very far way ahead than those partners who are still operating in the conventional model, because we need as I said earlier, a scalable low cost model which could actually take us through each and every nook and corner. So when I talk about 2.8 or 3 lakh odd BC as well as CSE points with which we are right now connected, that gives me that length and breadth across the country, wherein I'm using their infrastructure to actually source the products on behalf of the customer. So it's a win-win situation for all. For the customers, he just has to walk into the nearest BC point or the nearest CSE point, wherein he is anyway going for multiple other aspects. So if he has to renew his either health insurance or two-wheeler insurance or whatever insurance he needs to take, he just have to go there, give his details, and the person is equipped to already do digital transaction, and he just completes it. As I said say earlier, instantaneously he hands over to the policy to the customer. So that is the kind of engagement that we are able to bring in because of the digital adaptation. And the channel partners who are yet to get into that, definitely they are falling behind, because nobody wants to actually go to the conventional mode of offline policies and fill up the proposal forms,
True.
collect the check, and submit to the branch. And even the customer doesn't have to wait for that. But the other journey wherein the usage customer directly uses it, I guess it's still a long, I would say, in next 2-3 years, we might see that traction happening in the rural space. The urban space has already started seeing that, definitely. So that will get transferred slowly. We are moving Amazons and Swiggies and Zomatos to the tier 3, tier 4 cities. Similarly, they will also get used to use of insurance, buying insurance policies for themselves. But as of now, it is at the intermediary level, and this is how we can categorize that.
Sure. Reema, in lending, have you seen a very big gap between haves and have? Does digitalization create a have or have not kind of a structure in your markets or your business?
I'll give you an example, Anand, right? So we had this very specific, we had this customer who was based out of, again, a rural part of Bihar, right? And when our field agent had gone to meet her to collect money, her installment, somebody else in the same group, her neighbor, told us that she has migrated to Maharashtra, right? And then this lady, the other lady, the Didi, she called up the original customer from whom we were supposed to collect the payment, and she made a digital transaction and paid online, right? And all of this happened within a span of minutes, right? And a classical example to show that people are aware. It's, while it could be an educational, information gap for some customers, but more often or not, it's a mindset or an intent issue, right? Like, in the sense that I'm used to handling cash. So why should I move to something where I'm not having, not being able to move with, work with those notes? It's a mindset, it's inertia to a certain extent. But I'll also say that, and I think when the government and the regulators push banking, right, overall across, I think that's something that we can discuss at some length, that 42% of India has access, more actually, have access to banks, right? But if you see the banking habit, how many of people in India actually have banking habit, especially in rural India? Very, very low, right? And whether they're comfortable, dealing with their money in an online platform or through a bank, that directly affects their ability to go digital, right? Because ultimately UPI is getting deducted from your bank account, right? So you have to be comfortable with banking. You have to have a banking habit, or at least some amount of comfort to be able to do a digital transaction in the first place, right? And I think one thing to add to what Kuldeep said earlier, which will really help, is increasing rural language communication. And not rural language, I mean regional language communication, right? So if I'm able to give my customer, like, our app has so many different regional language capabilities, because my Didi in Guwahati or rural part of Jorhat district will be comfortable in the language that she is comfortable with. If I tell her that, you do digital transactions in, in English or even in Hindi, she will not be comfortable, right? So that amount of comfort and trust has to be kind of weaned in, I will say. But coming to your original question, if there is a divide between people who use and who do not use digital payments and digital modes of payment, right? I think no, right? Ultimately, that is where the future is. And I think even our customers realize that. It's a matter of, like I said, it's a matter of moving to it. I know that this is good for me, but am I actually doing it, right? That's just the change which has to happen, across a larger audience, is my sense.
So
Hey, fantastic.
just to
Yeah.
add
Yeah.
add to Rima, sorry, just to add to Rima's point in terms of simplifying communication, simplifying the app journeys, right? You look at the country today, from a photo shy country, we moved to Facebook. Okay, we move. In fact, the rural India picked up TikTok ahead of the urban India, right?
Yes.
The kind of talent what we saw on TikTok was primarily coming from tier 2, tier 3 locations where people got, doing videos of there. Forget about pictures. So a camera shy country moving to a selfie country, moving to a Facebook, moving to TikTok. So people are evolving. It's the beauty of the platform which has to simplify and onboard people. In
True.
financials or in insurance, in BFSI as a sector, we complicate a lot of things in terms of doing overboarding in terms of communication. We scare people, right? The terms and
Absolutely.
condition on the loans what you sign for, we are also not aware of what papers we've signed, right? How do we simplify that is very critical, because the rural customer wants that transparency, wants that ease in terms of onboarding. And typically our multi-page document when we get on insurance or loans, these scare people ki meri zameen to nahi le jayega. So this is,
Absolutely.
I think, this is a good learning for us in terms of at least our private brands like us need to simplify and stay away from fears for regulatory is us. We'll have to manage them at the end of it, right? I think how is that we find a solution out of managing that regulatory box and again delivering the product is going to be very critical. And multilingual, simplifying the app journey, like Reema said, is going to be the Didi will understand that journey, right? Versus a Reema in urban India would will still have that time and still have that bandwidth to break that entire complexity on the communication. The Didi would not want to do that. So I think
I think
this is going to be a conduct for brand custodians like us, communication leads like us, that we simplify communication and take it to rural India.
Absolutely. And I guess a lot of folks who are listening in would be saying, okay, all these guys are just talking about, BFSI, BFSI, but come on, there's life outside of BFSI. So, answer the question to everyone. In your businesses, how are you integrating with non-BFSI brands, which could be across consumer goods, could be electronics, could be pharmaceuticals, whatever the case may be, to give your consumer a better mm, deal or a better buying experience or more interaction or engagement or however you would want to deem it. So across every category, how are you reaching out? Because I guess this is also a great forum where a lot of other brands might want to reach out to the BFSI world and vice versa. So anyone could go on this as to what are you
So
doing as a brand in terms of working with
Anand,
other
I would,
brands.
yeah, yeah. So can I take this, because I think in this space, being an aggregator, being a rural fintech, not being branded with our own products allows us to do this, right? We say we are a platform as a service, and platform as a service allows us to integrate a lot of sectors, not just BFSI. So payment is one stack. What we've done recently in this pandemic, we've added stack, we've added e-commerce stack, we've also taken edtech to rural India. So how is that a Byju's or any other player like Byju's travels to rural India is also going to be very important. So while we've done insurance as well, Bala, not that we've shied away from insurance, but we are doing a journey from BFSI to e-commerce to edtech to how is that we take pharmacy and healthcare as well to rural India. So which is important. Having said that, the important part is entertainment, which is your OTT platform. Sachetized OTT platforms also need to reach rural India, and that's the game what we want to probably take on our platform to the end customer as well. Because what I see, which I explained earlier as well, probably I mentioned earlier as well, the youth which is in rural India is changing and is evolving very fast. So it's not going to take too long for us to see rural India behaving pretty similar to what the urban consumer is behaving. So there is aspiration to hold OTT platforms. There is aspiration to be on Snapchat. There is aspiration to shop on Instagram. We ride with a belief that a rural India is not on Instagram. And when I met folks in college, people's first preference was Instagram. Second preference was Snapchat. And obviously, with age, we still figure that we find that people are still on Facebook, but people have evolved. People are shopping on Instagram in rural India. And this is not one of the colleges, multiple colleges I've visited in rural India, to the remotest location where Adivasi tribes exist. This is a similar pattern what I see, that rural youth is evolving. So how is that we not just take BFSI as a stack, but how do we take the entire stack, which is a rural India, urban India experience, to rural India on a platform is going to be our journey. That's what we are doing.
Absolutely. Mr. Balachandran, given a far more monoline segment like insurance, how does your brand or in your practice, how do you integrate, other consumer good products or other services into this? I mean, does something happen? Is it on the roadmap? How does it go?
So for us, Anand, it's all about engaging with multiple channel partners to build that reach. So any insurance companies cannot reach out to each and every village by their own. So they need someone who has that distribution network or the reach or the connect with direct customers. So BFSI is always been banking or maybe NBFCs or MFIs. They are always one of the channel partners where all insurance companies work with, especially the BC channel partner as well as the online kiosk these days. But other than that, what we could do something that can help the community as well as help the intermediary is exploring other options which are conventionally not used. So something that we have started initiating is FPOs, food processing companies or food producing companies, as one of the intermediation or channel partners for taking ahead of insurance to the last mile. Agri-techs can do a long way. They can do associate with insurance on a long way on that because they have direct connect. The farmers are actually using their apps directly. So that is another segment which will be booming in the next couple of years, especially with the crop insurance and the PMFBY growing in such a big way. They all have a long way to go. Another important aspect which SBIG is keen on exploring is the state rural livelihood missions. So these are one segment which have that structure straight from the state level to district level to village level, block level to village level. So through the self-help group network, through the cluster level federation, this is one segment which actually can help not only insurance but maybe all of us who are willing to take our product to the rural market. This is one segment which can actually help all of us because it's a structure which is been developed, which has been developed for by almost all state missions to promote multiple government products as well as multiple other lines of business. So these are few segments that we are looking at in terms of expanding our reach rather than the conventional model. So we would like to do a bit more on these lines through association with these channel partners. So that is how I guess we can bring in that diversity.
No, fantastic. And Reema, outside of adding insurance to lending and investments, in the consumer goods segment or electronics or anything else, is there stuff that you are integrating into your business so that value gets added to the consumer?
Rima,
I
you
think
you are on
Reema,
mute,
I
I
guess
guess.
you are on mute.
Sorry about that. Audible now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying that, as sorry about that. Again, we believe that the aspirations of a customer, whether or of a lady, because most of microfinance customers are women in India, so that's the same. Everybody wants to have a good pressure cooker or a fridge in their home, LPG gas, which are basics for a lot of us, maybe in urban India, but maybe not that much in rural, right? So aspirations are the same, right? Lifestyle aspirations, apart from basic healthcare and education, which I discussed earlier, right? So we do provide customers the opportunity. So we've tied up with various OEMs, and whether it's a pressure cooker or a smartphone or cycles, right? So we have cycle melas where customers come in because that's such a popular and convenient mode of transportation in India, especially in rural India, right? And we do provide that. We provide credit for those which are slightly more expensive, right? And we see that customers, they want it, right? It's not I want a fridge in my house, big small doesn't matter. And we tie up with these OEMs because delivery is often a challenge, right? So how do we ensure that the product gets delivered in a condition which, in a time, of course, as Kuldeep mentioned earlier, which a customer, that instantaneous, I know that, okay, I'm going to get this in 7 days time, right? Or even no matter if I'm in Bombay or whether I'm in rural Madhya Pradesh for that matter, right? So, and we've even integrated all of this into an app. We used to call it the Apna Bazaar app. Now it's part of our main app as well, where customers can see, okay, these are the products which are available. How much time is it going to, take for the product to reach me, right? And then, of course, place the order sometimes on the app, sometimes directly through our field agents as well. And it's all integrated in the back end. So, but the idea behind that is the same, that the aspirations of a customer, whether she's rural or urban, they are the same. Everybody wants to improve their lifestyle, the way they live, the way they operate, the schools their children go to, the education they get. So those things are pretty much constant, right? It's a
No, I think
constant effort for everybody.
No, I think super duper. So I think this has been an absolutely fantastic decision. I've been scribbling a few notes during the course of this interaction and telling it to even my team members that, hey, that's a great thought. Now we need to quickly do something on this. So I think really appreciate that. I guess so. We've just got one question, which I guess has been answered in some form. That do we really see the whole rural-urban divide blurring. And that's Sanjay Kaul. I think that's a very, very nice question, sir, which I guess has got answered in different ways. That yes, we do see the divide really blurring, and now it's just a matter of time. There will be, of course, some catch up will happen, or how the journey goes. But I guess that's kind of answered. If there are any more questions, folks, just do write in. As I said, that it's not just about being on this forum, but since we are all a part of a WhatsApp group, so just keep the questions flowing there, and we'd love to answer stuff and really, really build on this. So I guess on this note, we should call it a day. And I guess everybody, I'm sure everyone's looking forward to a great evening and a nice relaxed weekend before the rest of the month madness takes over. So everyone, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure interacting, and I'm sure that everyone who's tuned into this session has taken away a lot of valuable stuff very, very instantaneously. So
Yeah.
all have a great
Thank
day,
you,
Thank
Anand.
and
you.
thanks so much,
Thank
and
you.
looking
Bye.
forward to interacting in different forums.
Thank you.
Thank you.